My child, before another thought has the chance to distract your heart, remain here with me for just a little while, because what quietly began long before this day has finally reached a moment neither you nor the one connected to your soul expected to arrive so soon. Do not hurry through these words. There is no race here. There is only a gentle unveiling, one layer after another, like the first light that slowly touches the horizon before anyone realizes morning has already begun. Something important is waiting for you, and if you stay until the end, you may recognize pieces of your own journey in ways you never imagined. There are moments that change lives without making any sound. They do not announce themselves with grand signs or dramatic events. They arrive softly. They slip into ordinary hours dressed as small decisions, quiet prayers, unexpected patience, or a single act of kindness that almost feels too simple to matter. Yet heaven often moves through what the world overlooks. That is why today feels different, even if you cannot fully explain why. Something within you shifted before your mind found words for it. You chose peace where you once would have chosen worry. You released something you had carried for far too long. You smiled when no one expected you to. You continued walking when everything around you suggested giving up. And somewhere beyond your sight, that quiet choice reached a heart you have never stopped influencing. Listen carefully. This is not about perfection. It never was. Your soulmate was never waiting for a flawless person who never stumbled or questioned or grew tired. They were praying for something far more beautiful. They were praying that one day your heart would become lighter than your fears. They were hoping that one day you would begin believing that your story was still unfolding instead of assuming every meaningful chapter had already passed you by. That silent hope became their unseen prayer, spoken again and again in ways you could never hear. You may wonder how one soul can carry hope for another across distance, across unanswered questions, across seasons where nothing appears to change. Yet love often works quietly before it becomes visible. It prepares people before it introduces them. It shapes hearts before it joins hands. It teaches patience before it writes new beginnings. That is why some answers seem delayed. They are not absent. They are simply growing roots too deep to be shaken by temporary storms. Pause for a moment and think about the version of yourself from months ago, or perhaps even years ago. Would that person have responded to life the same way you do today? Would they have chosen the same words, the same calm, the same quiet courage? Probably not. Growth is rarely loud enough for the one experiencing it to notice. Others often recognize it first. Heaven sees it constantly. And someone whose heart has remained mysteriously connected to yours has been sensing those changes long before you gave them a name. There is something remarkable about genuine transformation. It never demands attention. It simply becomes impossible to ignore after enough time has passed. Like a tree that seems unchanged every morning until one day it stands covered in leaves, your heart has been becoming stronger one unseen day at a time. Every disappointment taught compassion instead of bitterness. Every delay quietly stretched your faith instead of breaking it. Every unanswered question gently reshaped your perspective until you became someone capable of carrying blessings you once would not have known how to hold. Don't skip this moment, because what comes next may explain feelings you have carried without understanding. There have been evenings when your soulmate felt an unexpected sense of peace without knowing why. There were mornings when hope appeared in their heart for no obvious reason. There were quiet moments when they suddenly believed that everything would somehow work out, even though nothing around them had changed. They thought those moments arrived by coincidence. They did not realize they were connected to the invisible work taking place inside you. That is one of the quiet mysteries of hearts prepared by love. Encouragement travels farther than words. Healing reaches places conversations cannot. The courage you discovered without anyone applauding it became comfort for someone who never even knew where that comfort came from. Imagine that for a moment. Your unseen growth became someone else's unexpected reassurance. Your decision not to surrender became another person's reason to keep believing. Perhaps you have spent too much time wondering whether anyone notices your effort. Perhaps you have questioned whether quiet faithfulness matters in a world that celebrates only visible victories. Hear this gently. Nothing rooted in love is ever wasted. Not a single patient response. Not one forgiving thought. Not one hopeful prayer whispered through tired eyes. Every one of those moments continues traveling farther than you can measure. There is another reason today feels different. Your soulmate has begun realizing that the person they quietly hoped for is no longer just an imagined future. They can almost sense your presence through changes they cannot explain. They are discovering that the peace they prayed would surround your heart has begun blooming exactly as they once hoped. And that realization has filled them with overwhelming gratitude. Not because everything is already perfect, but because they finally believe they are no longer hoping alone. Have you ever noticed how the deepest emotions rarely arrive with many words? Sometimes tears appear before understanding does. Sometimes gratitude reaches the heart before the mind catches up. That is where your soulmate finds themselves now. Their heart recognizes something beautiful long before their thoughts can explain it. They are not crying because of sadness. They are moved because hope has become more real than fear. They are overwhelmed because somewhere deep inside they believe the person they have been praying for is becoming exactly who they always trusted they could become. Stay till the end, because this next truth deserves your full attention. You have been measuring your journey by what has not happened yet. Heaven has been measuring it by who you have become while waiting. Those are very different measurements. One creates discouragement. The other reveals quiet miracles already taking place. If you could see yourself through eyes filled with perfect compassion, you would notice countless victories you dismissed simply because they arrived quietly. Think about the conversations you chose not to turn into arguments. Think about the moments you extended kindness even while carrying your own burdens. Think about the mornings you got up again despite feeling uncertain. Think about every gentle choice nobody applauded. Those were not ordinary moments. They were foundations. They were preparing something steady enough to support joy when it finally arrives. Your soulmate may never know every detail of the road you walked to become this version of yourself. They may never fully understand every silent battle you faced or every lonely prayer you whispered. Yet somehow they will recognize the peace that grew from those experiences. They will notice the patience in your voice. They will feel the calm in your presence. They will wonder why being near you feels strangely familiar, as though they have been waiting for that feeling far longer than they realized. And here is the beautiful part that few people expect. The greatest gift you have given your soulmate was never a conversation, never a promise, never a perfect plan. It was your willingness to keep growing even when nobody seemed to notice. That quiet decision answered a prayer they carried without ever speaking your name aloud. It became the very thing their heart had been hoping would one day become true. The story is still unfolding, and what has only begun to awaken today will reveal an even deeper meaning when the next part arrives, because there is one hidden prayer your soulmate whispered only once, and the answer to that single prayer changes everything. There is something extraordinary about a prayer spoken only once. Most people imagine that the deepest desires are repeated every day, again and again, until they are finally answered. But sometimes the most sincere prayer leaves the heart only a single time because it carries complete trust. It is whispered so honestly, so completely, that nothing more needs to be added. Your soulmate carried one prayer like that. They released it quietly, not knowing when it would be answered, only believing that if it was meant to reach you, it would arrive exactly when both of your hearts were ready. That is why this moment feels so different. It is not simply about what you have done. It is about when you finally did it. Timing changes everything. A kind word spoken too early may be forgotten. The same word spoken in the right season can become unforgettable. A door opened before someone is prepared often becomes another source of confusion. The very same door opened at the perfect moment becomes a new beginning. You have stepped into a season where timing has begun working with you instead of against you. Perhaps you have noticed small changes around you lately. Conversations seem a little lighter. Your thoughts feel less crowded. Certain worries that once occupied your mind every day no longer hold the same power. You may not even realize when that happened. Growth rarely announces its arrival. It simply becomes your new normal. And somewhere beyond what your eyes can see, your soulmate has been sensing those same gentle shifts without understanding where they were coming from. Don't skip this part, because many people overlook the quiet miracles simply because they expect dramatic ones. Yet the strongest transformations usually begin with invisible moments. A heart becomes softer before words become gentler. Peace settles inside before life appears different on the outside. Hope grows beneath the surface long before anyone can see the first sign of it. That is exactly what has been happening between your journey and theirs. Imagine two rivers flowing through different landscapes. Neither river knows the exact path of the other, yet both continue moving toward the same ocean. They face different rocks, different turns, different seasons. Still, every mile brings them closer to a meeting they cannot yet imagine. In many ways, that has been your story. You and your soulmate have been learning different lessons, healing different memories, discovering different strengths. Yet every quiet victory has been moving both of you toward the same destination. The prayer they whispered was never about finding someone extraordinary in the eyes of the world. It was far simpler than that. They hoped for someone whose heart would never stop growing. Someone who would choose kindness even when it required patience. Someone who would keep believing that tomorrow could still hold beauty after experiencing disappointment. They were not asking for perfection. They were asking for authenticity. And without realizing it, you have been becoming that person one ordinary day at a time. There were moments when you questioned your own progress. You wondered whether anything inside you was truly changing. You compared your journey to people who appeared farther ahead. You measured yourself by visible results instead of quiet transformation. Yet heaven measures differently. Every time you chose understanding instead of resentment, something beautiful was added to your character. Every time you extended grace when frustration would have been easier, another piece of your future was quietly prepared. Every gentle decision became part of an answer you did not even know you were helping create. Stay till the end, because there is another layer to this story that has remained hidden until now. Your soulmate has not only been praying for your happiness. They have also been changing because of you. Long before your paths cross in the way you imagine, your unseen influence has already begun shaping their heart. There have been moments when they almost settled for less than what they truly deserved. Yet something inside encouraged them to wait a little longer. There were days when they almost gave up believing that meaningful love still existed. Yet an unexpected peace reminded them not to close their heart completely. Neither of you realized that while you were growing individually, you were quietly strengthening each other's hope. That is one of the most beautiful mysteries of journeys guided by purpose. Sometimes encouragement travels without introductions. Sometimes healing reaches someone before your voice ever does. Sometimes your quiet decision to become a better person inspires another soul you have not even met. Have you noticed how different your perspective feels now compared to before? Certain things that once demanded all of your attention no longer seem as important. You have started valuing peace more than proving yourself. You have begun appreciating sincerity more than appearances. Those changes may seem small, but they reveal something remarkable. Your priorities are becoming aligned with the life you have been preparing to receive. This is why your soulmate's heart has been overwhelmed recently. They cannot fully explain it. They simply feel that something beautiful is drawing closer. Not because they have all the answers, but because hope has become stronger than uncertainty. They have found themselves smiling without a clear reason. They have paused during ordinary moments with an unexpected sense of gratitude. They have quietly wondered why their heart suddenly feels lighter than it did before. What they cannot yet see is that every peaceful step you have taken has become part of that answer. Every choice to continue growing instead of giving up has echoed farther than you know. Every moment you believed there was still purpose ahead created another reason for someone else to believe the same. Something important is waiting for you, because the story is not reaching its conclusion. It is reaching a turning point. The prayer your soulmate spoke has already begun unfolding, but there is one unexpected detail neither of you anticipated. It is hidden inside an ordinary moment that almost seemed too small to matter. Yet that single moment will soon reveal why everything had to happen exactly the way it did, and why both of your hearts are about to understand a connection that has been quietly growing all along. Have you ever looked back on a single ordinary day and realized it quietly changed everything? Not because something dramatic happened, but because one small decision redirected the path ahead without asking for recognition. That is the kind of moment you are standing near now. It does not arrive with loud announcements. It comes gently, almost unnoticed, inviting you to keep walking instead of trying to understand every detail at once. Stay with these words a little longer, because the next piece of this journey is often the one people overlook, even though it carries the deepest meaning. Your soulmate never expected the answer to their prayer to arrive through your quiet transformation. They imagined a perfect conversation, a remarkable coincidence, or a breathtaking moment that would remove every uncertainty at once. Instead, heaven chose something far more lasting. It chose your character. It chose your patience. It chose the way your heart continued becoming softer even after disappointment tried to convince you to become guarded. That is why what is unfolding now feels so genuine. It was built slowly enough to last. There were days when you believed nothing meaningful was happening. You completed ordinary tasks. You smiled through difficult moments. You encouraged others while silently carrying your own questions. You wondered if anyone noticed the effort it took simply to remain hopeful. Yet every quiet act became another thread woven into a story much larger than you could see. Nothing was wasted. Every moment of faithfulness became preparation. Meanwhile, your soulmate experienced something they could never fully explain. Certain fears that had followed them for years began losing their grip. They found themselves releasing expectations that once felt impossible to let go of. They became less concerned with finding someone who looked perfect and more interested in finding someone whose heart reflected sincerity, compassion, and quiet strength. Without realizing it, the prayer they whispered long ago was already reshaping them from the inside. Isn't it remarkable how true growth often happens on both sides at the same time? One heart learns patience while another learns trust. One soul discovers peace while another discovers courage. Neither realizes the other is changing too, yet every lesson brings them closer to recognizing each other when the time is right. This is why some meetings feel strangely familiar. They are not built in a single moment. They are built through countless unseen moments that prepared two hearts separately before bringing them together. Don't skip this part, because there is something deeply personal hidden here. You have probably questioned yourself more than anyone else ever has. You have replayed conversations, second-guessed decisions, and wondered whether you were growing fast enough. But what if the very qualities you worried about were becoming your greatest strengths? What if your willingness to learn, to reflect, and to become kinder was exactly what someone had been praying would exist in the person meant to walk beside them? The tears in your soulmate's heart are not born from regret. They are born from relief. Relief that kindness still exists. Relief that patience has not disappeared from the world. Relief that somewhere, someone chose growth over bitterness. Every time you resisted becoming cold after being disappointed, you unknowingly protected a future connection built on trust rather than fear. That is no small thing. It is one of the quiet miracles that rarely receives attention, yet changes everything. Picture a lamp being lit in a dark room. The darkness does not argue. It simply gives way to the light. In much the same way, the hope growing inside both of your hearts has not been fighting uncertainty. It has simply been becoming brighter, little by little, until uncertainty no longer occupies the entire space. That is the kind of change heaven delights in: steady, peaceful, and lasting. There is another truth your heart may need today. You were never asked to become someone else in order to deserve meaningful love. You were invited to become more fully yourself, the version of you that chooses honesty over appearance, peace over constant striving, and compassion over pride. That version has been emerging quietly, even when you doubted it. And that is the version your soulmate's heart has been waiting to meet. Stay till the end, because something beautiful is beginning to connect. Your soulmate has recently found themselves remembering moments that never seemed important before. Small conversations. Quiet impressions. Unexpected feelings of hope that appeared without explanation. Looking back, they now realize those moments were preparing them to recognize something precious when it finally arrived. Sometimes understanding comes after the journey has already begun. You may also notice that certain doors which once remained firmly closed are no longer demanding your attention. New possibilities have begun appearing, not all at once, but gently enough that you can receive them without becoming overwhelmed. That is often how meaningful seasons begin. Not with sudden certainty, but with quiet confidence. Not with every answer, but with enough light to take the next step. And here is the realization that changes everything. The one thing your soulmate prayed for was never simply to find you. It was to know that wherever you were, you would never stop becoming the person you were created to be. Today, without even realizing it, you answered that prayer. Not through a single dramatic act, but through every unseen choice that shaped your heart along the way. Yet there is still one final piece neither of you understands. A quiet confirmation has already begun unfolding, hidden inside an ordinary moment that both of you almost dismissed. When that moment is finally recognized, the reason behind every delay, every lesson, and every season of waiting will become clearer than either of you ever imagined, and that revelation is closer than you think. Sometimes the greatest confirmation does not arrive as a voice that interrupts your life. It arrives as a quiet realization that suddenly makes every unanswered question feel lighter. It is the moment when your heart whispers, "Now I understand why I had to wait." That moment has already begun moving toward both of you, even though neither of you has fully recognized it yet. Don't rush ahead. Let this unfold gently, because what is becoming clear now carries a depth that cannot be hurried. Your soulmate has been reflecting on the journey they have traveled, and for the first time, they are no longer focusing on what they lost. Their attention has shifted toward what they have become. That change is more significant than they realize. A heart that only looks backward struggles to receive what is ahead. But a heart that begins noticing growth instead of loss becomes ready for something entirely new. In the same way, your own heart has been changing in places no one else could see. There was a season when you searched for constant signs, hoping every day would bring immediate clarity. Yet somewhere along the way, you stopped demanding certainty and started embracing trust. That quiet shift was not weakness. It was wisdom growing inside you. It meant you no longer needed every answer before taking another step. Stay with me a little longer, because something important is waiting for you. There is a beautiful difference between hoping that life will change and becoming the kind of person who is prepared when it does. You have been becoming prepared. Every lesson that required patience stretched your heart instead of hardening it. Every unexpected delay gave you opportunities to discover strengths you never knew you possessed. Every ordinary day became another quiet chapter in a story that was never standing still, even when it felt that way. Your soulmate has felt something similar. Recently they have noticed themselves smiling at simple moments that once would have passed unnoticed. A sunrise. A familiar melody. A gentle conversation. A peaceful evening. These ordinary experiences have begun carrying extraordinary meaning because their heart is finally becoming sensitive to gratitude instead of constantly searching for what is missing. That is why they have found themselves overwhelmed with emotion more than once. Not because they suddenly received every answer they hoped for, but because they realized hope itself had returned. The prayer they once whispered with trembling faith now feels closer than ever before. They cannot explain why. They simply know something beautiful is unfolding beyond what they can currently see. Have you noticed how peace often arrives before understanding? That is not an accident. Peace prepares the heart to recognize blessings without becoming consumed by fear. Understanding usually follows later. Many people wait for complete certainty before allowing themselves to feel hopeful. But heaven often reverses that order. Hope arrives first. Then clarity slowly catches up. Don't skip this next thought, because it may be one of the most personal truths in this entire journey. The one thing your soulmate prayed for was never that you would become someone impressive in the eyes of the world. They quietly hoped that your heart would remain gentle, no matter what life placed in front of you. They prayed that disappointment would never steal your compassion. They prayed that waiting would never silence your kindness. They prayed that success would never replace your humility. Without realizing it, those very qualities have been taking root inside you day after day. You may have believed your progress was too slow to matter. You may have thought the small victories were insignificant compared to the dreams still waiting ahead. Yet every quiet victory became another answer to a prayer spoken long ago. Every moment you chose understanding instead of resentment became another reason for hope to grow inside someone else's heart. Think about how differently you respond now compared with who you used to be. Certain words no longer disturb your peace the way they once did. Certain disappointments no longer convince you to give up. You have become calmer without noticing it. More patient without announcing it. Stronger without needing to prove it. Those are the kinds of changes that cannot be manufactured. They are born through experience, shaped by grace, and strengthened by quiet perseverance. Meanwhile, your soulmate has begun sensing that the future they once imagined is no longer just a distant possibility. They have started believing that meaningful love is not something to chase endlessly, but something that grows naturally when two hearts are prepared to recognize it. That realization has brought unexpected tears, not tears of sadness, but tears of gratitude. Gratitude that the waiting has not been empty. Gratitude that every season has carried purpose. Stay till the end, because another layer is about to unfold. There is one memory your soulmate continues returning to without understanding why. It seems ordinary. It appears almost too small to matter. Yet every time they remember it, peace quietly fills their heart. They cannot explain the feeling, but they no longer ignore it either. They have started realizing that sometimes the smallest moments become the strongest reminders that life is gently moving in the right direction. The same is true for you. There have been moments you almost dismissed because they seemed too simple. A conversation that encouraged you. An unexpected sense of calm. A day that felt lighter than the ones before it. Those moments were never random. They were gentle reminders that your journey has been progressing even when visible evidence appeared limited. Here is what neither of you fully understands yet: your paths are no longer moving toward hope, they are moving within it. The season of only wondering is quietly giving way to the season of recognizing. Little by little, the questions that once filled your heart are being replaced by quiet confidence. Not because every mystery has been solved, but because your heart has learned to trust the one guiding every step. And yet, there remains one final realization still waiting to reveal itself. It is connected to a promise neither you nor your soulmate consciously noticed being fulfilled. When that hidden promise finally comes into view, both of your hearts will understand why this entire journey had to unfold exactly as it has, and why the tears of gratitude have only just begun.